Wait for, meeting is now live streaming on Facebook. Look at that.
My gosh. Shoot. Oh my goodness.
Well, I can actually view the stream on Facebook as well.
You can. But make
Who
sure
knew?
that you mute it because then there'll be reverb.
Oh yeah, that part I know. I have a couple people in my class who unmute themselves to ask me questions, and then because I'm still not muted on their side, I can hear myself, and then it gets to be really, really weird.
Ooh, you know what I want to do? I'm
What
going
you
to
want
put,
to do?
if you want to join in, I doubt anyone will do this, and I've never done this. I'll put the meeting ID.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean? That way,
I like it.
maybe you can get some haters or something.
I'm okay with that.
All right.
Probably need some to keep me in line.
All right, sir. So you were saying that you do some virtual classes.
Yeah, I teach basically like a total body conditioning days, upper body, lower body, so virtual training, 6 days a week, Monday through Saturday, and I do 2 classes on Tuesday and Thursday.
And you do that out of your gym, or do you do that at your house?
We do a live and like out of the gym. So there is some people actually in the facility, and then there's people at home. The thing I like about it is if I travel or if I go anywhere, I still do it virtually. So even the people that normally would come to class can do class while I'm gone.
Okay, so it's basically, imagine you were at Lifetime doing Alpha, but you just live stream it.
Correct. Yep. And we record everything. So every month there is a basically a stockpile of YouTube videos. I have them all unlisted. So all of my class has them. So I have people who are doing the workout from this morning right now. I have people who are doing yesterday's workout today.
Okay.
So
Nice.
everything exists and everything stays for the class forever.
Do you ever do any virtual? Like, do you ever?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I have just 2 people on one-on-one virtual.
Okay. And how do you feel about that?
It can be good. It can be a little bit rough. The thing that's painful, especially with Zoom, and you've probably seen this, and you've probably seen this with the other conversations. If one person starts talking too quick or doesn't stop talking, you have that interruption, so the flow is kind of cut off. That's the only thing I dislike about it.
And this is one-on-one, you said, right?
Correct. Yeah.
And you do this through Zoom?
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't experience that really, what you're talking about.
Really? It may just be my people. It could be me too. Who knows?
Maybe I'm just better, you know? No,
I would 100% admit that. Yeah.
Hey, so I was interested in talking with you because it seems like lately, you've been doing this whole, what is it called, unpopular opinion thing, and I just wanted to kind of pick your brain, like what made you want to start doing that, and it seems like your persona has kind of changed online a little bit. Is that true or no? It seems like you're being a little bit more bold with what you think, and
yeah, so it took a little while for me to kind of, I don't want to say come out of my shell, because anyone who knows me knows I haven't been really a contained person, but my online presence has always been very reserved, very like, oh, I don't want to rock the boat. I'm worried about what potential clients we'll see or whatever. And I've slowly sort of realized that, and this sounds horrible, and I know it sounds horrible, but if you don't like it, I don't care. And it's not because I don't actually care. It's because we're all allowed to have opinions, and we're allowed to express our opinions, and not expressing your opinion is not okay.
Was there anything that prompted this? I know you read that book, I think it's The Subtle Art of Not Giving a What? You can cuss if you want to, I don't care.
Okay.
You read that book, but you read it a while back.
I read that a while back.
But did that have any bearing on, how did you go from kind of being more reserved to I'm going to be a little bit more out there?
As I'm sure we've all seen it, it looks like society is kind of veering one direction, and we're veering away from, so it looks like logic itself is compromised, like the ability to make a logical thought. And it doesn't matter. It's like whatever you consider logical, you can't look at the other side. So if I were to look at you and I think your shirt is red, and let's say you tell me your shirt is blue, I'm like, okay, well, it's my computer tint. It's my video. It's my eyes. I understand there's a reason why I would see that differently. But it seems like we've shifted so far away from, one, professional and courteous discourse and logic, that somebody just needs to ruffle people's feathers and get them starting thinking.
Yeah, man. And I know that when I went over to your facility there, I forgot how long ago was that to do that video that I didn't do anyway, but we kind of talked about that. But see, the interesting thing is I kind of wonder about this because I feel the same way, but those people that I look at as being completely illogical, they're doing the same thing. You know, they're thinking that, let's say, my frame of reference or my thinking is illogical. You know what I mean? So then it puts you in this place. I mean, personally, I believe that there's truth, and we talked about this. There is a truth. You know, of course, there are things that are subjective. You know, so you might say I like red. I say I like blue, right? And that's subjective. But there is a red and there is a blue. You know.
Yeah.
So you can say that this is blue, and that's fine. But don't make me say this is blue because it's not the truth. It's not real.
Yeah.
You see what I mean? So anyway, do you ever kind of second guess your stance on things? Or how are you confident in what you think is right? Because what you're saying, I mean, I'm sure a lot of people feel that way about everyone being, or you're seeing society shift in a way that's not logical. You know, they're not thinking logically. Go on.
Yeah. Well, and that comes from, in college, we had to read research papers. And it's a long explanation to get there, but stay with me. We had to read research papers. In that research paper, they were usually, this is my findings, this is what I found. Then our homework from there was to go out and find research that refuted that. So I do the same thing. If I read something, I go, okay, what does the opposite side look like? What points do they make? And it's not whichever side best fits. It's whichever side has the better points that look more logical, whatever has more, whether it's science behind it, whether it's more reason behind it. And of course, like you said, reason is based on the person who's looking at something. So whatever lens I look at something through, it's going to dictate my reason on how I look at that. So what I do is I try and be impartial and look at something and go, well, science says, the surveys say, the information says this, and no one's really capable of refuting that. So this must be what it actually is. It's how you would draw any hypothesis in science. This is what it is. Can I prove it or can I disprove it? If I cannot disprove it, it must be true.
I don't know about that, though, if you cannot disprove it. You know what I mean? So, for example, because there's a lot of things that cannot be disproven. Like, for example, if I say that the whole universe was created 2 days ago, exactly the way it is, with all your memories and everything, and then you'll say, well, what about the fossils? And I'll say, well, those were created 2 days ago. You see what I mean? So you can never quite disprove it. You know what I mean? You can paint illustrations and kind of create an argument that says, yeah, that's probably not true, but I guess what you're trying to say is probably, right? Not 100%.
Yeah. Well, and that's even with the exact example you just gave. So let's just say you do believe the universe was created yesterday. All the memories that we have of each other and everything else was fabricated up to that point. Let me hear more about that. Tell me more about that. Where is that coming from? Where did you get the information? Because there are different theories that could indicate that we are in a simulation. There are theories that indicate that we just could be on a constant loop. We could just be the only thing and everything that we know is made up. So it is possible, but it's not, you can't prove that it didn't happen yesterday and you can't prove that it did happen 2 billion years ago. People can make the argument, well, based on what we can see, well, that's based on what we can see. And what we know is what we can see is manipulatable. Yeah, easily manipulated.
Do you believe that we're possibly living in a simulation? I'm sure you've heard Elon Musk say that there's a 99% chance that we're living in a simulation. Do you agree with that? Do you kind of, I know that's a far out there thing and people are going to think that's nuts, but
yeah. Do I believe it's possible? I believe it is possible based on where technology is currently and how fast it's improved in the past 50, 60 years. So basically all that to say, yes, it is possible that it could just be all one giant simulation.
do you think it's probable if you had to put your money on it?
I don't believe it's probable, because I feel like there would be things that if it was a simulation, someone's running the simulation, and I think there's too much negative for it to actually be one, because I feel like you'd have to soften the edges of everything a little bit more so that there's not as much trauma to the simulation itself. That makes sense?
Yeah, kind of like, well, in the Matrix, it was kind of the opposite. Everything was too perfect and people kept waking up. So they kind of roughed the edges a little bit. I don't know if you remember that or not. Have you ever heard of, and this conversation is getting kind of whatever, but just let me know if this is boring. There's a research facility out of California. I think it's Quantum Gravity Research Facility. And they believe that they found the building block or the pixel of our reality. Mm-hmm. And I'm trying to remember, I looked into it a while back. So this is going to sound super probably nerdy, but I'm trying to remember, there's a 8th dimensional shape called an E8 lattice, if I remember correctly. And that projects a shadow. I'm trying to remember. It's like it projects some kind of 4th dimensional crystal shadow. And this is science. This is based off what they're saying. I know it sounds out there, but they're saying that they found the building block or the so right now on your screen there's a pixel that makes up the screen. Yeah. So they believe they found the 3-dimensional pixel that creates our existence. And it gets pretty weird when you kind of look into what they're looking at, but the evidence that they're finding is kind of pushing them in the direction that this is in fact the simulation. So that doesn't mean it's true. It's real interesting too. The more that you kind of look into these things, what you think about really shapes how you view the information, just like what you were saying. So this guy, anyway, I don't want to kind of rant on because I kind of forgot a lot of what he had to say. But if there is anyone listening, or even if you kind of find that interesting, it's called Quantum Gravity Research, and they got a lot of YouTube videos and they kind of go into depth on it and whatever. But that's kind of what he's not saying it is a simulation. He's just saying what we're finding is kind of leading us in that direction. It seems that's what's actually happening. So,
which is very possible.
All right.
Coin toss.
I want to ask you some questions that are controversial.
Okay.
If you don't mind. I mean, you don't have to answer them, whatever, man. I'm just curious what you think. I'm curious about what you think about the vaccine. Because you haven't posted really anything about that. Not that I remember.
No, I had in the beginning. So if you watch, there's a logic to the things I post. So I'll post something that's very divisive, and then I'll post something we can all kind of agree on, and then I'll post something that kind of pushes the boundaries a little bit. But early on, when we looked at the overall death statistics, I started comparing those. So the unpopular opinion was the comparison of deaths around the world, and it wasn't anything other than pneumonia kills 800,000 people a year. Yes, some of those people are in third world countries, but it's 800,000 people every year that pneumonia is killing. Heart disease kills 650,000 people every single year in America. Diabetes, the risk of diabetes and the associated cost with it is over $100 billion a year to the medical industry. So when we start looking at government regulations on what they consider healthy for us, with all those other numbers out there, that's more my concern. Don't come at me from government regulation with we're concerned about your health when we have all these other issues that we haven't addressed ever. So as far as the vaccine goes, it seems very weird that we're pushing that and we're not pushing healthy diet or getting outside, getting sunlight. They've done studies. I mean, the British Journal of Sports Medicine released a study on vitamin D and the effects of people with high vitamin D amounts in their system. and the reactions to COVID. And what they found is similar to what the vaccine would do. If you have a high amount of vitamin D in your system, typically you're at low risk for contracting and at lower risk for having extreme incidents of COVID, meaning hospitalization or anything worse. So I feel like it's easier to say, hey, go outside, get some sun within the recommended dosage. Because I already see where your eyes are going with this, because a lot of people worry about skin cancer there. But if you're outside for 15 minutes a day, that's, well, according to the CDC, the World Health Organization, that's all the sunlight you need to basically recharge your battery. So I would say sunlight over most other things, and a healthy diet.
Okay. I'll just, we're just having a conversation, man. Let me know. But I'm curious, have you yourself gotten it? And
No.
will you be getting it?
No. No.
There goes your credibility with half your clients, man. Boom, boy. Well,
but it's funny you mention that, because I had this conversation with all my clients. I don't see, some of them have been vaccinated, some of them haven't. The flu vaccine, so at one point the flu killed 50 million people. And it wasn't until, I want to say, 50 years later we came up with the vaccine for it. Not saying that time frame is important here, but we now have people that walk around not getting the flu vaccine every single year. So I haven't gotten a flu vaccine since I was in college. So we're looking at almost 20 years now. And I maybe had the flu once, but they told me it was the flu. I didn't have any other symptoms but a fever for 3 days. Just had a fever. And they're like, it's got to be the flu. So maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. I can't see, and even the doctors I've spoken to haven't said if this will be a yearly thing or if this is just a one shot and done thing. So without information, I can't necessarily say I want to do it or don't want to do it.
Hey, we have a comment here from some girl named Katie Jones. She has the same last name as you. She says, why is it dark in the house?
I don't know. I was wondering the same thing. I turned the lights on and then I turned the lights down and then I thought it was too bright. Hang on. See this. Of course, she's going to be upset because the one light that I always have on that she hates. Yeah, that's exactly it. She hates when I have that light on too.
I'm doing remodeling in my house and I don't even have blinds on, so I can't even prevent this because like the window's right there. But anyway, okay. Well, that's cool, man. See, I'm curious about these thoughts, and your opinion tends to be really respected. All the years at Lifetime, it seems like a lot of trainers tend to go to you for advice and things like that. You know what I mean? And that's not to say that we're gods among health, but in general, we tend to spend a lot of time looking into things and helping people get healthier, from more of like that word is kind of played out, I think, holistic, but we kind of, in general, I think a good trainer will help their client from a lot of different ways, not just one thing. I've trained many doctors and they know a lot about, let's say, certain things, but they still come to me asking me advice about all type of things because they don't understand. I think we're kind of big picture in general. Have you ever heard of germ theory versus terrain theory? You never heard that before?
No, maybe I have, but tell me.
Okay, so basically, let me see here. I'm trying to get out of the sun. Anyway, so germ theory is kind of like the accepted theory pretty much by all doctors that says COVID is a virus. If you come in contact with COVID, you will get COVID and then you'll get sick. Influenza, you come in contact with that, you will get sick.
My dog likes to look out the window.
Oh, okay, yeah. So basically germs, virus, bacteria, those are the cause of illness. Okay. Terrain theory says that there's more involved. It's not as simple as a virus or bacteria. So, and what's fascinating about this to me, I personally believe in terrain theory much more. And that's one of the reasons why I'm not so scared of virus and bacteria, because I don't think that's the only thing. And there's actually studies that I can send over to you. I tried looking through them, and but anyway, one of them, they took influenza and they sprayed it right in people's mouths, and they didn't get sick. There was another study where people were sick with some kind of disease in their blood, and they actually did a blood transfusion to other people, and those people didn't get sick. So if it is just that virus or bacteria that's causing the problems, then why aren't, so for example, if I look up staph, what causes staph infection, it's going to say this bacteria causes it, but it's all over you right now. It's all on the ground and everything. So why isn't that causing issues? So basically, terrain theory says that there's other things that are involved. So to your point, let's say vitamin D deficiency, that would be one of the contributing factors on why somebody would potentially contract and have issues with COVID. Let's say a weakened immune system. Let's say they're not getting sleep. Let's say that they're malnourished, and then they come in contact with COVID. Then that's a recipe for disaster. But it's more of a all-encompassing idea versus COVID is the thing that's going to get you, you know? Does that make sense?
Oh, it makes perfect sense. Because what you think about when you get sick is typically when people get sick, healthy people especially, it's more when they're run down. It's more when they're overstressed. They're not making good food choices, not getting enough sleep. Because most of us walk through life without really incidents of sickness. But the people who are eating bad things, not getting outside, limited risk of contact with other people, all those things add up. You're not building your immune system, you're not strengthening it. So that makes perfect sense.
Is there any reason why you think that that methodology isn't more popular? Like, why is it that most doctors are trained, let's say, with the idea of germ theory that says this is the problem, this is what causes it, versus understanding kind of like the entire matrix, I guess, for a lack of a better word, like the whole system?
Well, I mean, the easiest answer is there's no money in healthy people. So if we're focusing on what the thing is, let's say we're looking at this bacteria that's causing the problem. Why is this bacteria causing the problem in this population and not the rest of the population or whatever else is going on? If we look at a small sample size, because it's really easy to look at, you look at the people who have died from really any disease, they all have similarities. They all have similar underlying conditions. Obviously, old age is one. We can rule that out right away because we all end in the same place. It doesn't matter how you live your life. It always ends the same way. But if we look at people who are younger and having issues, whether it's with their heart, whether it's with diabetes, whatever it else is, what are the other quality of life issues? If we affect the quality of life issues, we would change the outcome for some of those diseases. But there's no pharmaceutical money in quality of life, or really any money for anybody.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I wonder about that, as far as, you know, why things are, you know, from a medical standpoint, Western medicine. And I'm not against Western medicine. I know I may come off that way. I'm all, you know, Western medicine's fine to a certain point. I just think that it doesn't consider a lot of other things. So, and I think that's one of its big failings, in my opinion. That's why I try to stay away from it if I can. So I might come off like, oh, I don't believe in, you know, traditional medicine. No, it's not that. It's just I try to avoid it if I can. So to your point again, you know, when it comes to avoiding illness and things like that, I'm going to try to do all those other things first, you know, if I need it. Okay, I want to keep asking you some things here, sir. And I'm not looking at questions. I'm looking at the feed here for the live stream. But so you said you have a brother or somebody in your family is a cop.
My uncle is a cop. Well, I have an uncle, I have a cousin, I have a few family members that are cops.
Okay, and you know, you've posted a few things about, you know, what's going on with the police and that kind of thing. So I just kind of, and I think we kind of talked about this, but I'm just curious to kind of hear you say kind of what you think about what's going on and why you think it's that way and that kind of thing.
So I posted in the past about defunding the police. My main question is, and no one's been able to answer this, and this has become a very controversial thing. When we talk about defunding the police, yes, it's allocating money to a different place. So we're we're not canceling the police. We're not cutting off the police force. We're not firing. Well, let me go back a second. We're not getting rid of police. We're just changing where their money goes. What happens to the officers that are out there doing their job? What happens to the officers that are good people? What happens to the officers that are currently on the street? Are they given the option to go to a different position? Or is it one of those things where it's like, hey, we're taking money away from this department, which means these officers are now gone and they're out on the street, they don't have a job? Or is it like, okay, cool, you were working over here, now you have the option to go to Task Force A, Task Force B, or Task Force C because we're just shifting where the money goes? And that's one thing that no one's answered.
I'm not 100% clear on like the reallocating of the funds. Like where would it, where are they saying that we want to put this money and why?
So they want to put it towards social workers, which isn't a bad idea because like things involving kids, you don't necessarily need an officer showing up at your house if a kid's involved, depending on what level. Like child abuse, I think there should be an officer there because I think it's a safety thing versus a social worker. I do think most things don't require like police officers in the normal sense, like speeding tickets, parking tickets. That's one thing. If I were to run your plates, let's just as for instance, if I was an officer and I'm just the traffic officer, so to speak, and I see that your plates are wanted in a felony, I would call in other officers, not necessarily that. But that's what they're saying. Basically, they're saying we want to put money towards social workers. We want to put money towards different departments in the police force that aren't necessarily more officers literally walking around doing officer things.
And do you feel like that's a good idea?
I do not. I feel like it would be better off the other way. So being around officers pretty much my whole life, one of the things that is a common theme is they work a lot. And I think they work more, well, officers, firefighters, EMTs, any emergency service people, they work more because in the beginning, no matter what county you're in, no matter where you work, you're paid peanuts for your first year to, I think, 2 to 3 years for what you're working. It's barely a level wage. But when you get the overtime, that's where you start making more money. Especially as you get farther in your career, that overtime money is actually worth a lot more. So it's easy to go from a shift that's supposed to be, let's say, 50 hours a week to a shift that is now 70 to 80 hours a week in a high stress job. And I think you see the worst in people whenever they're tired and stressed out. I'm not making a claim that all officers are completely innocent because there's asshole officers, there's asshole first grade teachers, there's just assholes. That's what they are. But I think having more of them would decrease the prevalence of bad officers.
Okay. I'm curious, what are your thoughts on, like, where do you see things going? Like, if you had to put your money down and predict the future and where you think things are headed, what do you see society looking like 5, 10 years from now, 20, 30, 40, 50? Like, do you see trends? Because I see clear trends. Like and you know, of course, I'm not God. I don't know. But when I look at it, I'm like, dude, I can see where this is going. You know, that's just me. I'm just curious if you feel similar.
I think if we continue down the trend that we're going on, eventually the pendulum will swing back the other way and it'll swing back hard because it does. It swings back and forth. Every generation kind of either moves it one way or the other. I think we've reached a point where we've gone as far to one side as we can, and it's going to either drift back or it's going to snap back really quick.
And that way is what? When you say that it's gone one way, what does that mean?
To a point where people are afraid to speak, where they're afraid to voice their opinions, where we're talking about getting rid of the people who protect our communities. And the biggest thing with that whole concept that just jacks with my mind is those of us on the ground. So let's just say, for this example, I decided I hate police officers and I want all of them gone. Well, that affects me because now if my house gets broken into, who do I call?
Right.
It doesn't affect the people who push for that are higher up, the politicians, the people in power. if they decide to get rid of all the police, they're still going to have guards. They're still going to have people that they can pay to protect them. So they can give us, the average person at home, whatever we want. And whatever the consequences are, it's not our problem, pretty much. So I see it's...
Man, what you're saying is I'm hoping that that's what will happen. Because there's two things that could happen. We're on a trajectory. It could continue, right? Or it could be a pendulum thing. And I'm just hoping that what you're saying is true. I'm hoping that it will swing back. What I've seen is I've kind of seen this pendulum swinging, but it's swinging, but it's still moving. You see what I mean? So now it's swinging over here, but it used to be over here. So either way, it's still moved. There's still a trajectory. So I'm guessing what you're saying is true too. I think that there will be a pendulum effect that's going to swing back, but ultimately, I think that whole pendulum mechanism is still moving in a certain direction, and that's what I'm hoping. I'm hoping will kind of that will stop.
Yeah.
Dang, what was I going to ask you? Darn it! What were we? You were
police officers, defunding the police.
Yeah. Police officer. Dang, man. I forgot. Oh, well. It was really good, too. Whatever it was.
It'll come back to you.
I have a whole collection of videos of me just saying, oh, what was I thinking about? Darn it. Have you noticed that?
I had some for this.
Does that happen to you? Have you noticed that?
Yeah, we get engrossed in the conversation. The next thing you know, you're like, yeah, shit, where was I going?
Okay. Well, I'll if I remember, I'll say it. So, yeah. So, do you have any other controversial beliefs? I'm sure you do, definitely. But is there anything that you're kind of passionate about, or anything that is kind of maybe relevant or happening?
No, I mean, my biggest thing is obviously coming from a family where there are police officers. Like my uncle he's a gay police officer. And recently the New York City, I forget the abbreviation, but the New York City's gay and homosexual officer club, I don't know, I know it's not a club, I know someone's going to lose their mind for me saying that, has been banned from the New York City Pride Parade. Like they're not allowed to go and be part of the parade because they're also officers. So that to me is like,
say now.
Okay, go ahead.
And it wasn't really that. I was just curious if you've seen any of these videos of like people protesting the police, saying like "F the police," and they're just like, and then something happens and they're like, "Call the police." Have you seen those? Where like there's literally, I think it was in Seattle where they kind of created their own little city within a city, and they said no police in here. And then they're all like, there's tons of videos of them like saying, "Oh, call the police," you know? And they got their signs saying like, no to the police. Anyway.
Well, and we know people that are, you and I know people that are like that are very, screw the police. Until something goes wrong in my world, then the police weren't there fast enough. So that's one thing. It's a very interesting line to walk because you're either for it or you're against it. It's the same as anything else. You can't be, I'm for it when it doesn't bother me, but when it does bother me, I'm completely against it.
I watched a video the other day. It was this, it was a student. It was like a virtual classroom and a professor. And he was basically just saying that he thinks that police are heroes. And this professor, she was getting pissed. She was just like, basically coming down on them hard, saying that they're the worst and all this. And I was just kind of thinking about it, and I was like, what is a hero? And if police aren't heroes, and if anyone's listening to this, I've had some sucky situations with cops that were in my face, and I was just like, man, these people are crazy, like power hungry. I'm not saying that there's not issues and things like that, but at the same time, I was just thinking like, who's a hero? Like, how do you define what a hero is? And like their profession is to serve and protect, like I'm just thinking if anyone's going to be called that, I would think they would be kind of like near the top, you know, military. Yeah. Of course, you could say, you can define it however you want, but anyway, I just thought it was interesting that they've become kind of the villains in a lot of people's eyes, you know. Have you ever had any bad situations with cops? I cut you off. You can continue.
No, I've been relatively lucky. Again, having family members that are cops, whenever I deal with them, I'm usually calm. I'm usually relaxed. I know they're just people that are doing their job. You know, and of course people could say like, well, you know, it's because you can pass for a white person. You can pass for this. You could pass for that. It could be that. It could be the fact that I just don't care. If a cop pulls me over, they're going to ask me for my license. They're going to ask me for my insurance. I know what I need to do. I know that I'm not making any sudden movements. I've been raised that way since I was a kid. You know, I made a comment about censorship and someone's like, well, you're white, so you don't have to worry about censorship. I'm like, I was Puerto Rican and Italian. It's not exactly white. Well, I can pass, so that's okay. I'm like, where's the spectrum? Don't I get like should I want to get shot? Like, I don't know how this works. So I don't know. It's a weird thing.
About the censorship thing, I find it so interesting. You know, and I know these are all like hot button topics, but these are the things that interest me. And plus, like I said, I'm interested in kind of what you think. But man, I just find like we're kind of like at a crossroads to a point where I don't know. Like I don't act like I have the answers, obviously, but it comes back to how you define truth and where you find truth. And it seems like what's happening is there's polarization that's happening where you have one group of people who trust in, let's say, the fact checkers, and one group of people that don't, you know? Mm-hmm. So do you have any ideas on how, like, what you think would be a better approach? Do you think that censorship is necessary? Do you think that we shouldn't be censored on these public platforms? I know that it's privately owned, so some people will say, well, Facebook's privately owned, they can do whatever they want. And I get that side too. So what are your thoughts on censorship?
I don't, and of course, what I'm about to say is going to basically light some people on fire. I don't believe in censorship in any regards, because if I start limiting what somebody who is very hateful can say, it's only a matter of time before something I say sounds offensive enough for someone to censor what I say. And then it's only a matter of time before somebody else says something that's considered offensive, and they're then, you know, limited on what they can say. So I don't think censorship should exist, period.
So you think that pornography and things like that should be allowed on, let's say, Facebook and YouTube, because that is a form of censorship, or it is killing, you know, or whatever. So you're all like no censorship, period.
No.
Okay.
I mean, and it sounds rough, but like there's different pages that have different things, and you choose what you go to look at. For the most part, like Facebook will do a good job of popping up like, hey, this is sensitive material, and you can go ahead and you can click on it and go, oh, well, I choose to be an adult and go, yes, I want to see that. I may instantly regret whatever it is I'm looking at, but I chose to watch it. I cannot come look at your frosting. I love you. Yeah. Bring it to me.
Is that Ava?
Yeah, she's making frosting.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. But we've had that conversation too. Like there's a lot of things that people try and keep from their kids, or they try and like hide things. And I think that's how we've reached where we are, because people have protected their children from so much crap that the real world is a scary place. It's a horrible place. And sometimes, it looks very nice. There's a lot of things that we don't see ever, and we need to be aware they're going on. And we can't look at like, and I hate to say like the news, because this gets kind of tinfoily hatty, but when you look at the news, their job is to sell ratings, and their job is to sell ad space. So they have to make whatever is happening look more gory or gruesome or more negative than it is, because they need you to keep your eyes on that channel. So if all information was basically free information, uncensored, unfiltered, we would have the ability to draw our own conclusions about what's happening in the world with less need for ratings.
Hmm.
And it doesn't mean that you have to look at it, but it's there.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. I kind of wonder about this. That would be interesting though, if there was no censorship, period.
No.
You know?
Well, and I think that was the one thing that threw me off about the whole Twitter situation, because when you go on Twitter, Twitter is no man's land. You can find everything from like educational videos on how to build a shelf to pornography on Twitter. And they banned certain things that they would consider hate and they would consider whatever else. There was a whole investigation into Twitter because there was a child sex ring that was being run through there, allegedly. Don't know if there was or not. I'm not trying to claim that they were doing it, but there was a whole, search of what was going on there, and it was never stopped. Allegedly, it's still going on. I don't know how true that is. Just random crap you see.
I thought Twitter was notorious for deplatforming people. Maybe that's a certain type of people that say a certain type of thing that doesn't align with, their side.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because you can go on Twitter and...
Okay, go on.
You can go on Twitter and find literally anything you're looking for. You go to the Twitter search, you type it in, you'll find it. Doesn't matter what it is.
I have a Twitter. I haven't looked at it in years, so I don't even know. So I haven't even been on that site. I can't even remember last time. But I do think it's interesting when you look at who is getting deplatformed.
Mm-hmm.
What do they share and what do they have in common? Because it's fascinating what people are getting deplatformed for, or they're not even being told what they're getting kicked off for. They're just getting kicked off, and they're saying, well, you violated our community standards that are constantly changing. And man, it's funny. It is. Anyway.
Well, and so when we look at censorship and this is funny because when you look at the left versus right of the political spectrum, in the early 90s, it was all the Republicans, the conservatives that were very pro-censorship. I don't want to turn the channel and not look at this. It was, I don't even want it on my TV. I don't want the option of even stumbling across this. And now it's gone the other way where it's like, oh, I don't want this on my TV. So the left is now saying, I don't want these things to be said because they bother me. But you have to take what I say. So it's flip-flopped. So that's, we talk about that pendulum swing.
Totally.
It is literally, they've switched sides.
Totally. No, you're so right. It's so funny. If you look at JFK and kind of what he stood for, he was a Democrat, but you listen to what he had to say, and he's just a straight-up Republican now. Like, pretty much what he comes out of his mouth is, and that's fascinating because this whole left-right kind of paradigm or system that we have, I see it. So the stance says, okay, conservatives want to keep everything the same, and then the left is kind of moving, more progressive. Okay. Mm-hmm. But the way I see it is it's moving like this. So the right is actually moving towards the left, but at a slower pace. And the left is like moving kind of exponentially out this way. So that whole pendulum thing is ultimately still moving. So I'm wondering if, hopefully this isn't too convoluted, but you have like this pendulum that's moving, but that is a pendulum itself. So I'm wondering if ultimately that will swing back towards, kind of, and I'm sure we're being real vague, and I wonder if we're even on the same page on a lot of these things that we're talking about.
No.
But
no, I think we are. I think the biggest thing is, especially nowadays, you can't pick a side. You can't say left, because if you say left, you're automatically on the right. You can't say right, because then you're automatically on the left. And that's back to the whole censorship thing. So the nuance in conversation, like what we're having here, isn't had because someone will post something and by default, it goes against my beliefs, whether it is a tweet, whether it is a Facebook status or whatever. And since it's against my beliefs, they're automatically on the other side of my political spectrum, my ideology, my paradigm, my religion, whatever it is. That one thing conflicts with any one of those characteristics, and now they're on the other side.
Right. Yeah. And that was one of the reasons why I wanted to like have these conversations, you know, um, just to, I don't really have a clear objective in what I'm doing, but I just know that when you talk to somebody and you see their face and it's fluid and dynamic, it's just completely different than when typing and engaging through other means, you know, like commenting on somebody's posts and this and that, you know? So,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I just think conversations like this are getting fewer and fewer, right?
Yeah. Well, it's conversations are fewer, and people who are having conversations are having them with their echo chamber. So they want to have a conversation where their thoughts are reflected back at them, and there's no dissent, there's no uncomfortable conversation. So it goes back to what we said at the very beginning. Like, I'm okay disagreeing with somebody, not because I want to make them angry, but because I want to understand why they think the way that they do. Because if you can educate me, if it's something I'm being ignorant about, I want to learn what I'm being ignorant about. If it's something that we're just at an impasse because I believe that the sun rises in the east and sets in the west, and you believe it's the opposite, then there's nothing we can do about it. But I understand that you have a fixed mindset on this one thing and not on some other things. And that's just how we live. But we don't give each other the attempt to actually have those things. It's automatically, you're wrong, I'm right.
Right. I noticed that if you and I disagree with something, the more information that we can get, and when I say information, I mean like nonverbals, even
Mm-hmm.
through this virtual chat, it's not as good as if I saw you in person. That changes something. But the more and more that we're kind of stripped of the information that we typically would get from like facial expressions and tone and that kind of thing, the more that it just seems like people tend to get more upset. And I'm guilty of it too. I'm not trying to, you know, I'll see somebody, I'm, they're idiots, you know, but if I see them in person, I'm just like, you know. So I'm wondering if that, because that in itself too could be, we're on a trajectory of less and less information. So I'm wondering maybe through technology we'll be able to kind of, and it's already happening now through the Zoom call. We're reintegrating a lot of that information that we lost. And again, when I
Mm-hmm.
say information, I mean like nonverbals, tone, that kind of stuff. Um, so I'm wondering if there'll be kind of like a resurgence of kind of people kind of not necessarily being on the same page, but disagreeing more cordially, you know?
Well, I would hope so. I think the past year made it very hard for people to be face to face, have conversations, because at the very beginning, we all thought it was the end of our society. And then people have been away from each other. I have a client who literally, with the exception of seeing me, she hasn't been out of her house in a year. And she went to Best Buy to pick up something for her grandson. And she's like, I honestly had an anxiety attack in the parking lot where they deliver me my stuff. I didn't have to go
Wow.
in.
Wow.
And
Yeah.
she was like, I freaked out because this person I didn't know, this man, was walking towards my car. And I was like, well, like, what was going on? She's like, I have no idea. He was walking towards my car with a bag and I freaked out. She's like, I didn't know if he was coming to rob me or what. And then
Yeah.
he like walks towards me holding the bag out and is like, oh, I've got your whatever it was. And she's like, so I think unfortunately, we've drifted farther away from verbal communication because of that. Hopefully now we will start trending back the opposite way because we can talk and we can go places.
Man, when I left Lifetime that first time and I was training out of my garage and I was doing a lot of virtual training just through the phone, and my
Mm-hmm.
world and my bubble just shrank down. And I remember when I went back to Lifetime, I had like anxiety attacks, man. Like I walked in, I was like, oh my gosh, there's all these people, dude. And I just like the first day, I
Mm-hmm.
just wanted to leave. I almost left that first day. I almost left the first like 2 to 3 days. Like I was just going to leave because it was so overwhelming, like all the systems and everything. And I remember Brooke,
Mm-hmm.
like he's
Yeah.
really the one that kept me there. Cause I remember he saw me kind of freaking out. He's like, what's the matter, man? And his voice was like that. And I was like, dude,
Yeah.
I don't know, man. This is too many systems, dude. This is just too much, like I can't. He's like, oh, don't worry about it, dude. It's all right. It's okay. And I was just like, He's like, just it's okay. And I was like, all right, dude, I'll make it one day. I remember just telling myself I'll do one day and then I'm gonna leave, you know?
Yeah.
Dude, but so I'm just thinking, because now I learned my lesson that first time. So now I'm trying to get out there. A lot of people don't know. A lot of people don't know. So what I mean is they don't know that effect. So they're not going out of their house because they're afraid. I'm not saying that's right or wrong. They're in their house though. So their bubble is shrinking. So then when they get out into the real world, I'm expecting lots of people to react that way. I'm expecting that to be like
Yeah.
kind of like a normal, you know? And I didn't know. I didn't know that that was happening to me. I thought I was going to go into Lifetime and everything was going to be normal. Like I thought I would go in there and be like, oh, boom. But it was just crazy, dude. Have you ever experienced
Yeah.
anything like that? Do you have any like
No,
social anxieties?
I did when I was younger. When I was younger, I used to not be able to go like anywhere. I don't know what it was about like going places. I was just very like freaked out to be alone in public. I would probably say about my junior year of college, I just kind of snapped out of it and kind of came back to being a normal person. I hate to say normal person, but it got to a point where I was like, oh, I can go places, I can do things. And then shortly after my divorce, I was like literally forced back into doing things by myself. And it was a little bit weird at first, but then it was like, oh, I like doing things alone. Like I can go to the movies by myself again. I can do those things. But it took like, big things, because the biggest realization I had was when I was in college, I realized at some point I was going to be alone. And I'd say it that way, like alone forever, but alone in my job, alone in going to work, not seeing all the same people I knew. And that was when it started to be like almost anxious for me, where I'd be like, oh, I can't go in public. I don't know any of these people. It's like, all these people. But after a while, I kind of snapped out of it and got back to normal.
Hey, to shift gears real quick, I'm curious about kind of your whole gym experience, because you were at Lifetime for a long time. I was there for a long time too. I left and then I went back, but you were there. I was there for maybe a little bit longer than you were initially. Like, did you come like what, a year later?
No, I got there. The gym opened in December, if I remember right. And I got there in June right after.
Okay. So you were
yeah,
less than a year out.
Within a year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you were pretty much one of the first people there at Lifetime. You were there from almost the beginning. And you were there continuously. How long was that?
I was hired in 2008. Is that right? Yeah, I think I was hired in June of 2008, and I was there all the way up till 2020.
Wow.
Yeah, 2020. Yeah.
38 years.
38 years. No.
No. No.
2008. Yeah. So.
Okay, so that's your life. Not only are you a trainer, but you're a Pilates instructor. You're a group fitness instructor, team class or whatever. You're doing metabolic testing. You're doing nutrition. You're doing whatever. You were kind of like in a leadership position there. What was that? Nutrition lead or something like that? Or okay, so you're heavily entwined into Lifetime. And then boom, COVID, right? Or did you leave before COVID? I forgot.
No, I left the day. Let's see. The day the club closed was the last time I walked out of Lifetime Fitness. So when COVID finally hit and management finally accepted the fact that we were going to close down, was the last time I walked out of there.
Okay. Okay. So Lifetime shut down. You left. Then what? What's going on?
Then about a year before COVID happened, I actually got my mortgage license. So I was doing mortgages. I was getting ready because I was burnt out from being at Lifetime. I was burnt out from being a trainer. And I talked to Keith and I was like, can I do what you do? He's like, yeah, there's a whole bunch of people in our industry that literally can't even tie their shoes. And knowing who I am and how I work, he's like, you could do this in your sleep. It's not really that hard. I was like, oh, that's awesome. So I had gotten my mortgage license prior to COVID, prior to anything about that or even thinking about that, because I was planning on dipping out because I don't think I could have kept training at Lifetime the way everything was going.
You were going to leave anyway.
Yeah, I was going to leave the industry. I was going to leave everything.
Okay.
And then when we closed down, it was a scramble because I had clients that were calling me up. They're like, hey, what are we going to do? What's going to happen with our workouts? What are we going to do to stay sane? Like, we got to keep moving. And I was like, hey, let's meet at the park. We're going to start walking a little bit. We're going to start doing some workouts. We'll see how it goes.
Which park did you go to?
We started, we were at Eisenhower for almost the entirety of May. No, we closed out in March. So yeah, April, May, June, we were in Eisenhower.
Really? Because there was a point when even that stopped, when they're like, you can't go out. Do you remember that?
Yeah. So there were workarounds for it. You couldn't go out without being with your family. So if I was training one-on-one, it was just, somebody I knew.
Okay.
You had to be 6 feet apart. And so in the parks, it wasn't that bad. They had threatened closing the parks down, but they never actually did, which was really good. Yeah. Or at least while I was still training at the parks.
Okay. I thought they did shut the parks down at one point. Because I was doing the same thing. I was going to the parks, and then, and I remember the workaround too, because one of my clients, her husband is a lawyer, and he kind of he circled the little thing on the whatever that says, hey, you can, all the things that you said. And then I thought I remember it shutting down, because then I stopped going to the parks, and that's when I started doing virtual. So anyway, you started doing that, then what?
I started doing that, and I was talking with one of my clients who's been with me for actually pretty much from the entire time I've been at Lifetime. And I was like, I thought about going out on my own. I thought about, starting a gym and have some people interested in going in with me. And she's like, well, if we came out here with all the bugs, all the nasty crap, and all the weirdos that we don't know, we would go into a facility with you. We're not running back to Lifetime. We're not Lifetime's clients. We're your clients. And that was what kind of revitalized me. That's what got me back into wanting to continue to train, because like I said, I had a foot out the door and I was ready to leave the industry, leave everything.
So then you, Isaac, Blake, you guys kind of get together, and were you in contact with Neva, or how did that come together?
Before I had left, I had reached out to Neva because I knew she was doing yoga at her place, and I was like, well, could we rent this space from you? And this is before I had any idea that I would really be leaving or anything else. And she's like, yeah, I guess we could rent it to you and whatever else. And I wasn't sure if my clients would leave, and I was toying with the idea of leaving the industry. So I had already reached out to her. And once COVID happened, she couldn't have the yoga classes anymore. So I think about mid-May, she reached out and she's like, hey, I've got this open space that I'm not using. If you guys can use it, if you want to still use it. So then it was just kind of all she wrote.
And how was your experience going from corporate, Lifetime there's a lot of systems and structure, and, they got the app here and you got to do this and got to go to a meeting and blah, blah, blah. And then now you're how's that feel? Like, what pros and cons? Like, are there things you like better about it? Things you don't like about it?
So I love the fact the redundancy is gone.
Redundancy in what way? What do you mean? So
meetings to have meetings to talk about what we're going to talk about in the meeting, that doesn't start for 15 minutes into the meeting. Dude, and then it's a rush.
Gosh. Yeah. Do you remember?
Yeah.
Quite literally, I remember when they're like, okay, we're gonna educate you guys, and we're gonna, and I remember I was like, oh, that's cool, man. And don't get me wrong. A lot of that stuff I thought was good, but I remember they would just spend so much time talking about what they were going to talk about. It seemed like the whole, almost most of the time was, this is what you're going to learn. And I'm like, well, do it already. Don't just tell me what you're going to tell me. Tell me. Anyway, go on.
Yeah. Yeah, that was one thing. Because when we had, I think you were there when we did the education calls, and they would give you a 30-minute lead up on who the presenter was. And then the presenter would have 15 minutes to try and present. And then everyone had questions like, okay, cool. See you next time. And you're like, I didn't learn anything. But so leaving there, I successfully am part of two different companies. One is the gym, one is the mortgage industry. I can successfully manage both businesses every day. And it is less work and less of a headache than working for one Lifetime Fitness.
Nice.
So Yeah, it's not because Lifetime made me a harder person or gave me a better work ethic. So if any of those Lifetime people are watching this and going, "We made you that way," they can take it.
Yeah.
Because I know some of them are out there. Because I've posted some shit and I've gotten some. Well, we helped. No, you didn't. You didn't help me. So made my life shitty. But yeah, that was that's the biggest thing. So having my own schedule. I'm one of those people. I'm structured anyhow. So every day my alarm goes off at 4:30. I get up. I make a cup of coffee. I read the news. I read through all my emails. Everything I have to do. Everything in my life I've automated. So I've created systems for myself that are basically, this is what gets done at this time, and this time. That's how I function. I've always been that way. I've always been a self-starter. So working for a company that micromanaged my time made me nuts.
Mhm. Yeah, man. I remember when they would come in and kind of say, you need to do this at this time, or like kind of fill my schedule. And I was like, that's screwing me up. It really made things worse. Yeah. It really did. And I, to play devil's advocate, I know that that's good for a lot of people. Just the way that I am, that it didn't work for me. I didn't like them coming in and kind of saying, you got to fill each hour, because I like that fluidity too. And everyone's a little bit different with how they like to handle things. But and what's up with this thing about this online thing that you got going on?
What's it called? What thing?
It's called it's like where you do videos, and like you and Isaac are doing it, and Heather.
That's the All Athletes TV.
Yeah. What's up with that? Is it a secret?
There's certain things like, well, allegedly, yes. Yeah, we had to sign some NDAs. So.
Okay. Is there anything you can talk about there? Is there anything you can say?
It's going to be, if it goes the way that they're talking about it going, it's going to kind of revolutionize what people think about health and fitness, and information that people can get to about health and fitness, athletes, and average person performance across the whole spectrum.
Okay. And are you excited about it? Is it
if I'm being real, yeah, it's whatever.
Okay.
I'm one of those, like, once the bird is in my hand, I'm excited about it. But until that moment, and part of that comes from the company that I worked for that gave me the regional nutrition lead and then took it away and then gave it to me and then took it away and then promised they would give it to me. So yeah, I've seen that scenario too many times. So I just wait till you actually provide me with what you're providing me with.
That makes sense. All right, buddy. Well, we've been chatting for about an hour.
That's awesome.
Tell these people how they can get in contact with you if they want to do some training or what you got going on and all that.
All right. So you can find me on Instagram. I post educational videos, started posting rants. I'm going to ramp it up to a third video a week. One will be actually a motivational video. And I hate to say motivational, but it's going to be more of a like fact video for your training and for everything else. So I'm on Instagram at _Anthony Pierre _ Anthony Pierre on Facebook. I believe Twitter is _Anthony Pierre _ as well. If I got them all down. And we could talk about training. We could talk about mortgages. We could talk about whatever you want to talk about. If you want to talk about how you hate my opinion of the police, then you can talk about that too. Because I'm actually willing to talk to anybody about anything. I don't mind uncomfortable conversations.
Nice. And you have that virtual class. What time's that? Or you said you have a...
Yeah, I have a virtual class. If anyone wants to do it, just send me a message and I'll send you the link for it. It is 6 a.m. on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, 7 a.m. on Friday, 8 a.m. on Saturday, Tuesday and Thursday at 9 a.m. So I have a lot of options.
Okay. Nice. Anything else, sir?
Awesome. No, I think that's everything, sir.
Well, hopefully you had some fun, man. I just wanted to chit chat with you. Like I said, I've always, your opinion has always been, I think, kind of interesting and sought after amongst trainers. And, so especially with what you've been doing on social media these days. So I appreciate that. You know, maybe I can learn a thing or two from you and be a little bit more bold, because I'm a lot more reserved. I have a lot, you know, I have a lot of opinions and things like that, but I'm more of like a peacemaker in the sense of I try not to ruffle these feathers. At the same time,
Yeah.
I'm starting to realize that um, that's not always the best approach. You know, sometimes
Yeah.
you can do more harm, you know, being passive. So anyway, that's
Yeah.
cool that what you're doing, man. All
Thanks,
right,
sir.
buddy.
I do appreciate that.
Hopefully I can see you one day in real
Yes.
life.
Anytime. You know where to find me.
See your body. Okay. Bye-bye, sir.
Bye bye, bud.
Bye.